Imagine it. The United States shattered, not a union of 50 stars on one flag, but 50 rival nations, each one armed, each one desperate, each one willing to fight for survival in the largest and most chaotic civil war in history. Imagine the Constitution erased, Washington, D.C. silenced, the federal government dissolved, and the U.S. military fractured into fragments claimed by the states in which they reside, bases seized by governors, arsenals captured, and even nuclear. Silos suddenly controlled by small governments unprepared for the responsibility of ultimate destruction. What was once a country bound together by law, economy, and shared defense is now reduced to geography and power, with every state a sovereign. Islands surrounded not by allies but by enemies. To understand how this nightmare unfolds, we must study the landscape itself. For the United States is a continent of extremes, stretching nearly 3,000 miles coast to coast, divided by deserts, plains, mountain chains, fertile valleys, and frozen tundra, a geography that would decide the tempo of war as much as guns or soldiers. Some states would emerge as giants, others would be consumed within days. California would appear to be the most formidable, with nearly 40 million people, an economy larger than that of most countries, high-tech industries, sprawling farmland in the Central Valley, and naval bases that open onto the Pacific. But California's power is fragile, for it is hemmed in by desert states hungry for its water, dependent on outside energy, and strained by vast urban populations vulnerable to siege. Texas, on the other hand, would rise immediately as a titan of war. 30 million people, immense reserves of oil and gas, sprawling land for armies and bases, and a long tradition of military presence, with airfields and training grounds ready to be seized. It could expand quickly, absorbing Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Louisiana, fortifying its Gulf Coast, and building a southern empire. New York, wealthy and influential, would face a harsher reality, hemmed in by Pennsylvania and New Jersey, vulnerable without imports, its great financial strength useless when the global system collapses. Survival would depend on sheer manpower and its ability to dominate the Northeast. Florida, crowded and exposed, would try to hold on behind coastal defenses, but with supply lines cut and pressure from Georgia and Alabama on land, its cities would strain under siege. The Midwest, the breadbasket, would become the most valuable territory of all. Endless farmland, vast rivers, and the Great Lakes, which would turn into naval battlegrounds. Ohio, Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana would fight to command food, fuel, and fresh water, for whoever controls the Midwest controls survival itself. The Mountain West, from Colorado to Utah to Montana, would serve as fortresses of rock and snow, nearly unconquerable but too sparse in population to project real power outward. Alaska, remote and freezing, holds oil, minerals, and defensible terrain. But cut off from trade, it would collapse into isolation. Hawaii, surrounded by ocean, would run out of food and fuel within months, its beauty turned to desperation. Smaller, northeastern states like Rhode Island, Delaware, and Connecticut would vanish almost immediately, annexed by their neighbors, their flags erased. To predict such collapse, we must turn to history. Yugoslavia in the 1990s, when neighbors butchered, neighbors and new borders were drawn in fire. The Soviet Union's collapse when entire militaries shifted allegiance overnight. And America's own civil war, where geography and industry, not just ideology, decided survival. Yet this would be far worse. 50 wars erupting at once, every border a front line, every city a fortress. The war itself would unfold in brutal phases. Phase 1. Collapse. The central government falls, Washington emptied, and the military splinters, nuclear weapons in silos across the Midwest, suddenly under local control, sparking fear across the continent. The Northeast descends into chaos as small states are consumed, and New York and Pennsylvania rise as rivals. Phase 2. Regional wars. The Midwest becomes a blood-soaked struggle for farmland and water, armies battling across fields and rivers, fleets fighting for control of the Great Lakes. In the South, Texas advances aggressively, annexing its neighbors and seizing Gulf refineries, while Florida digs in, relying on swamps and coastlines to resist. In the West, California arms itself with wealth and technology, but faces war on all sides. Water conflicts with Nevada and Arizona, naval rivalries with Oregon and Washington, desert battles that drain men and machines. Alaska and Hawaii stand, apart but are doomed to isolation, unable to sustain themselves. Phase 3, Consolidation. The weakest states collapse, consumed or annexed, until the map shows not 50 flags, but perhaps 5 or 6 superstates, Texas dominating the South, California ruling the Pacific, Illinois or Ohio commanding the Midwest, New York holding the Northeast, and Florida clinging on to the Southeast. Temporary alliances form but crumble quickly under ambition, and each superstate prepares for the final struggle. Phase 4, the endgame. The giants collide. Texas against California, New York against the Midwest, armies in the millions marching, cities burning, rivers running red, with war dragging on for decades. Tens of millions displaced, farmland poisoned, infrastructure destroyed, a continent brought to ruin not by foreign invasion, but by itself. In the end, perhaps one power emerges, perhaps several, but the United States as we know it ceases to exist. The dream of 50 united stars erased forever. Yet beneath this grim vision lies a deeper truth. The United States is not simply a collection of states, but a system of shared defense, shared resources, and shared destiny. Without unity, collapse is inevitable, and history teaches us that civilizations fall not only from external attack, but from within. When trust fails, when unity dissolves, when neighbors see enemies instead of allies. Rome fell this way. Yugoslavia fell this way. Countless empires before them fell this way. And so the question remains, what holds societies together? Is it laws and constitutions, or is it something deeper, the fragile, unspoken agreement that unity is stronger than division? Because if that agreement ever breaks, history tells us what comes next: chaos, blood, and the death of nations. Imagine it, a continent in flames, 50 states at war, the stars fallen from the flag, the dream of America fractured beyond repair, a nightmare vision, but a reminder of the fragile threads that hold civilization together.